Hello anybody, and thanks for tuning in to Monday Morning Handicapping. This is a big race breakdown of the Stephen Foster Stakes, where I'm going to be examining the race, the pace, and the track profile. A little agenda before I get started. I'm going to start with a brief introduction to the Stephen Foster Stakes, sort of the what, where, when, and why about the race. Take a look at the overview of the numbers for the past 11 runnings. We'll take a look at my Google Sheets document, which will be provided in the description below. Look at the average race pace for the previous 11 runnings of the Stephen Foster Stakes. Gain a general sense of how the races are run and won through several variables. Examine key prep races, pedigrees of winners, trainers, and jockeys. Then we'll look at a general statistical review of the key factors. Provide some potentially key elements when handicapping this year's running. Closing thoughts and wrap up, and my intention with this video is to have a starting point for which to reference and compare my handicapping against, and I hope that works out for some of you as well. So starting off, a little background on the Stephen Foster Stake. The Grade 1 Stephen Foster is a $1 million race going the distance of 9 furlongs, which is a mile and an eighth, on the main dirt track at Churchill Downs racetrack in Louisville, Kentucky. The race will take place on Saturday, June 28th at approximately 3:03 Pacific time. The race is named in honor of famed music composer Stephen Foster, who wrote the song My Old Kentucky Home, which is played annually as the horses walk out onto the racetrack for the Kentucky Derby. This race is restricted for horses that are 3 years old and upward, carrying 124 pounds. The first running of this race was in 1982 and has progressed from a Grade 3 race up to the top level of a Grade 1 over the years. This race is a win and you're in event, in which the winner will be automatically entered into the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Classic in the fall. The fastest time for this race was 1 minute 47.28 seconds in 1999 by Victory Gallop. And now, just to show everyone the Google Sheets document that I will be providing, as well as getting all my information from. So here's a look at my Google Sheets document. On the left column you have the years of the runnings of the race. Next column over we have the track in which it was run at. You'll notice 1 year it was run at a different track, and we'll get into that a little bit later. The condition of the track, as you can see, it was fast each of the last 11 years. And then we have the quarter mile. These are the times that the leader ran the first quarter mile of each race in their respective year. Up above we have the cumulative average for all 11 runnings for each segment of this Google Sheets document. So the average quarter mile for the last 11 Stephen Fosters was 23.72, but here's each individual year. Same thing for LB, which stands for lengths back. How far back at the quarter mile pole was the eventual winner for each year? So as you can see in 2024, the eventual winner was 1.75 or 1 3/4 lengths back at the first quarter mile into the race. This split is how fast the quarter mile was run between the preceding quarter mile to the next quarter mile. So they ran the first quarter mile in 24.13, the next quarter mile in 24.25. You add those together, you get 48.38. This right here is the difference between these quarter miles. 0.12, if it's a positive number, that means it was slower than the preceding quarter mile. So this next quarter mile was slower by 0.12 seconds into the half mile. And again, we have the averages above for everything. The average rate between the quarter mile and the half mile time up above. Same thing with the half mile, all the same figures, all the averages. The lengths back at this point in time for the eventual winner, the splits from the half mile to the 3/4, and the rate, how much they were slowing down, or as you can see, negative 0.77. They actually sped up between this half mile and the 3/4 mile, quarter mile time. We go on down all the way down to the finishing time of the race. The average finishing time for the last 11 runnings was 1 minute 8 seconds 0.36. The average slowdown rate 0.16, and this is only referring to the quarter miles because it's a mile and an eighth race. So there's 4 quarter miles, and then there's an eighth of a mile, so a half of a quarter. I did not include that in the overall slowdown rate. So this refers to the first quarter miles of the race. We have wire-to-wire winners. There are 2 of them, which equates to 18%. The odds of each individual winner, along with the averages above. The name of the horse that won the race. The post position from which they won. The last race that each individual horse ran in before winning the Stephen Fosters. Whether or not they won that race before the Stephen Foster. Did they win that race wire to wire? LRD stands for last race distance. What was the distance in furlongs of the race that they ran in before the Stephen Foster? And This is in furlongs, and remember, a furlong equals 1/8 of a mile, so you'll have to do a little math. An 8 furlong race is 1 mile. DSLR, days since last race. How many days before the Stephen Foster was their last race? We also have pedigree of the winners, the sire or father of each winner, the dam sire, so the father of the mother. A dam is a mother, but this is the dam sire, so the grandfather on the mother side essentially. What were those horses' names? The trainer that won the race, as well as the jockey that won the race. And there's some comments. I have one comment from 2023. This Stephen Foster was ran at Ellis Park due to safety concerns regarding the Churchill Downs racecourse. So taking a look at the year's track and surface, 10 of the last 11 runnings have been run at Churchill Downs. In 2023, due to safety concerns regarding the Churchill Downs racing surface, this race was run at Ellis Park, about 100 miles west of Louisville in Henderson, Kentucky. The year the race was run at Ellis Park was only slightly quicker than the overall average, so times for Ellis Park will be included in the overall figures, and this race at Ellis Park was run at the same distance, so no issues there. The last 11 Stephen Foster Stakes have been on a fast track. Recent history suggests the weather will be clear in this part of the country during this time. However, it is always wise to monitor the weather in the area of the track you are playing in the days leading up to the race. So average fractions and finish times. The fractions are set by the leader at each call of the race, not the eventual winner, unless that horse does win wire to wire, meaning led as soon as the gates open and was in first place throughout. If not, these fractions are set by whoever hits that quarter mile or half mile or 3/4 mile pole first. Above is the average pace at each points of call for each of the past 11 runnings of the Stephen Foster. Included are the lengths back for the winner at each point, the split times, and the rate. Again, the rate is a measurement of how much on average each point of call was run faster or slower than the previous, and measures how much the horses are slowing down. The slow rate at the end measures the cumulative slowing down during the first 3/4 mile splits in each of the 11 runnings. So again, that's from the quarter mile to the half mile to the 3/4, and the 3/4 to the 1 mile. On average, how much was the leading horse slowing down between those points of call? The final split is calculated above, that's that final 1/8 of a mile, but this is only 1 furlong, so while it is not included in the overall slow rate, the time of 12.62 seconds for the final furlong is a number worth keeping in mind when you do your handicapping for this race, as well as any other grade 1 9 furlong race. Continuing on, here's the average pace, splits, and finish times for the previous 11 runnings of the Stephen Foster, all averages across the board, so compare these times with some of the horses in this year's running. Right here we have the slowest finish time for the last 11 runnings. So on the slow end, how could this race be run? How far back will the eventual winner perhaps be if the race is run a little bit slower? As you can see, a slower race, horses are able to conserve more stamina. You would expect one of those horses near the front to be able to win because they have so much more stamina late in the race. They continue to run at near their top speed later on in the race. So as you can see, lengths back of the eventual winner was a half length, and then took over at the 3/4 mile mark, indicated by a 0 here in the lengths back. Below is the pace for the fastest finishing time in the last 11 runnings. So as you can see, here are your times, but also the lengths back, 1 length back, and then takes over at the 3/4. Probably because those front runners were getting a little bit tired. However, this horse was able to sit relatively close, even in the fastest finish time. So either this horse was a huge standout, or the Churchill Downs track might tend to favor front runners just a little bit. I do have this rule of 24. As you can see, whether it's the fastest or the slowest, all the splits in the race are around 24 seconds each. When I handicap a race, I like to look for horses that have run races with splits around these times. If they run a bit slower than 24 seconds in the early stages of their races, that is the individual horse that I like. I want to see them run the later splits of those races in under 24 seconds. These would be those closers or even mid-pack type runners. If the horse I like runs a bit faster than 24 seconds in the early stages of their races, I want to gauge how much they are slowing down later in those races compared to the averages above. This would be if I like one of the front runners or stocking types that can sit right off of the front runners. Look at their times, what they've run before, what surface, and compare that with the averages above. Lengths back, here are the cumulative average lengths back the eventual winners were at each points of call. As you can see, on average, the winner of the Stephen Foster is on average within 2 lengths of the leader throughout the entire race. The average lengths back actually increases from the quarter mile mark to the next quarter mile, which would be the half mile mark. As these top horses mature physically and mentally, they will be well conditioned and prepared for this race, so you can expect them, even if they give the leaders a little bit of a head start early on in the race, they should be putting in their best effort when running in such a premier race like this. This means that without a very fast pace early on, these front running or stalking type horses that are up close early have the stamina to keep running fast and are difficult to run down late. The faster I perceive the pace to be, the more credence I lend to horses that will be further back of the pack early, and that does go for all races. So the more speed that you perceive to be in the race, the more horses that want to battle for the lead, the more I would take a look at some of those mid-pack and closing types. Wire-to-wire winners. 2 of the last 11 Stephen Fosters were won wire-to-wire, which equates to 18%. Above here are the fractions and times for those 2 wire-to-wire winners. Compare the front runner or front runners in this year's running of the Stephen Foster and compare their potential splits based on what they've run in the past with these times above. How have those horses performed when facing additional pressure for the lead? So you might see a horse that really wants to go to the lead, but maybe they get a clear lead, and when they get the lead, they're ahead by a length or 2 or 3 lengths. But consider, will there be more than one front runner to apply additional pressure to not only stress those horses out, but also increase the early pace as horses battle for the lead? When I look at a racing form and it looks like there's a couple horses that like the lead, I like to look for a horse that has won or at least ran very well battling for the lead, not being clear by a length or 2, but only by a neck or a nose, maybe a half length. See which horses can withstand battling with other horses on the lead, because it really does take a toll on those horses. It stresses them out. They have to run a little bit faster and lessens their chances sometimes to actually run on and run their best race and have that stamina late in the race. This scenario is what helps set up some of those stalkers, mid-pack, or closing types that conserve their energy in the early stages of the race by being a little bit back early. Some of those horses battle on the lead early. They get extra tired because they're somewhat high-strung animals, and when they're stressed out a little bit, they just exhaust themselves a little bit more, allowing for some of those deeper closers to come up and win. Winners previous race. 5 of the last 11 winners won their most recent race before winning the Stephen Foster, which equates to 45%. Which means most did not win their most recent race before winning the Stephen Foster. So look for horses that may be improving. Maybe their last race they didn't win, but it was better than the race before that, and perhaps better than the race before that. See if the distance and timing just lines up, and maybe the horse can improve today and get the job done in the Stephen Foster. Only one of the winners of the Stephen Foster won their previous race wire-to-wire and then went on to win the Stephen Foster wire-to-wire. Only one horse did win their previous race wire-to-wire, and that one just so happened to win the Stephen Foster wire-to-wire as well. Of course, horses with that running style are more likely to do that, but we did have 2 wire-to-wire winners in the Stephen Foster, but only one of those won their most recent race, and they did win it wire-to-wire. 6 of the 11 winners of the Stephen Foster used the Grade 2 Ali Sheba Stakes as their prep race, which is 55%. Not all of them won the Ali Sheba, but 6 of the 11 winners came out of that race. And I just checked the entries for this year's Stephen Foster, and I don't believe that any horses running in this year's Stephen Foster is coming out of the Ali Sheba, so that is of interest to me. The average distance of the eventual winner's most recent race was 8.86 furlongs, which equates to between a race distance of 1 1/16th mile and 1 1/8. So look for horses that have run well at one of those 2 distances. It's not to say that horses can't win that ran at other distances, but this is just what the numbers have bore out. On average, the Stephen Foster Stakes winner's days since last race is 50 days. So look for horses that maybe are coming off a little bit of a layoff, 50 days. The range, however, was on the low end, only 22 days before winning the Stephen Foster, and at the high end, 77 days before winning the Stephen Foster. Looking at the winner's pedigree, a horse named Bernardini has been both the sire and dam sire of 2 of the previous 11 winners of the Stephen Foster. Giant's Causeway has been the dam sire for 2 of the previous 11 winners of the Stephen Foster. No other duplicates in the immediate pedigree, but if you look on pedigreequery.com, I'm sure you can make many more connections throughout the family tree. Every horse is an individual, but I think it's worth taking note of if the sire, grandsire, or dam sire of the horse you like is one of any of these horses. So now just some key takeaways. Looking at the track, make sure to recognize what surfaces and conditions horses have shown their best efforts. Was it dry, good, sloppy, on the turf, what distance, etc. If the track does happen to be wet, see success on a wet track or at least a high Tomlinson rating for a wet track. You usually like to see a number of 320 or higher, and if you don't know where to do that, look up my playlist How to Read a Racing Form under the video Career Performances. I break down that little section of the racing form there. Fractions and finish times. Look for a horse that has shown it can handle this distance, 9 furlongs, has handled shorter distances with some apparent gas left in the tank, or led at longer distances but maybe tired out very late and a cutback would do the horse good. Watching replays and getting the actual visual of how a horse is performing can be beneficial in conjunction with reading the racing forms. Lengths back, the eventual winner is on average within 2 lengths of the leaders throughout the entire race. The more need the lead type horses in any given race, the greater the chances I give to some of the deeper closing type horses. Wire to wire, 2 of the last 11 runnings were won wire to wire, which is 18%. One of those winners was a huge betting favorite and the other was a bit of an upset at 9-1. Look for any indications of a lone speed horse and dig deeper to determine if they might be able to lead the pack at a comfortable enough pace. Compare this leading horse's early fractions with the other runners in the race to see if they'll get the lead, then look at their closing fractions to determine if they will run on in the later stages of the race. That's it for this video. Thanks to everybody for watching. As always, feedback is appreciated, whether it's positive, negative. You have any suggestions for me regarding the video or how I can change things up, or just recommendations, things I should do different, things I should cover, things I shouldn't cover. If you didn't understand any topic or know someone who might be interested in horse racing, I do have a couple of playlists. One is how to read a racing form, and that's where I go through a racing form and break down all the components and sections of a racing form and just explain what it is. I've taken friends to the racetrack before, and when I show them the racing form to try to get them involved, it just looks overwhelming and a little bit daunting, and they're usually not interested and just want me to do the homework for them. But it's really fun to collaborate with people and share opinions, and I want more people to get involved, so I thought I would put out a video where I just break it down and make it real easy to understand, because the racing form is there to help the player make an informed decision. Plus, races are a lot more fun where you picture a scenario in your mind, and when you see the race play out as you envision, it's just a really great feeling. I also have a playlist betting on horse racing. That's where I break down all the bets that a track typically offers. I talk about what it is simply. I talk about how you can structure it, what the cost of the wager would be based on your ticket structure, and also some things that I look for before I place any one of these various wagers. So those are 2 good playlists for anyone who doesn't know a whole lot about horse racing, or if you know someone that doesn't know much but wants to get into horse racing. I think those are good places to start. For my next video, I'm thinking if I have time, I'll try to do a race forecast for the Stephen Foster Stakes, where I look at the racing form, go over it, share what I'm thinking, who I think's going to win, and how I might play the race. If I don't have time, I'll probably do another video on a pedigree playlist, a horse named Volatile, where I'm going to really dig deep into some of his offspring and see where his offspring are excelling on the racetrack. These are relatively new sires that I've been covering, so I kind of want to get the jump on good angles and when to bet some of their offspring, maybe catch some good odds while I'm doing that. But just some thoughts that I'm having for this YouTube channel. But if anyone has any suggestions or recommendations, please leave it in the comments below. I just want to thank anybody for watching, and good luck if you're playing the Stephen Foster. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time.